We are in the second half of this chaotic PDL season, and the Toronto Rock Slide, well, let's just look at the standings and see. We're 2-2 after week 4. We are actually the top 2-2 team by differential, so sole 6th place right now, and that is a playoff spot. But of course, there are a lot of teams packed in close behind us, and still not a whole lot of room for error. Many of these teams here could pass us in the next few weeks if we don't pile up some more wins. But you never know, right? I mean, last season, I went 4-4 with the highest differential at that record, and it was enough to sneak into the playoffs and then win the championship. But obviously, I'd rather get in more comfortably than that. There was an error in last week's standings table. Apologies to Ryan Green Blue. You actually should have been a spot higher last week. I had given a win to Lunala Plaza that they didn't have, but they do have it now. I didn't catch the error until very late in making the second video of last week, but I think it is fixed now. What's more interesting, of course, is the high end of the standings, where there are 2 teams that have still not lost a single game in the first half of the season. Not just a match, they haven't even lost a game. Staff United is one. I already played them. I wasn't able to do anything about that record. And we play the other one this week. This week's opponent is the East Coast Espurr. And what's more, before I get to the matchup, there's one more East Coast Espurr trade to look at. They've already gone kind of crazy with the trades lately, but here's another one. They dropped Hitmontop and picked up Latios. Poor Hitmontop, picked up pretty recently by the cooler Dreamyard Darkrise after having gone undrafted. Then traded to the Espurr, now dropped by the Espurr. And the Espurr actually get back a strong special attacking legendary Pokemon, which they had in Spectrier and traded away. So now their team is... I mean, it was already one of the scariest teams in the league. I've been saying that the whole time, but I mean, they got Dracozolt, which gives them a whole other terrifying mode to play with a strong electric type attacker, which is something they didn't have before. And the net cost to them in the end was not that much. They used to have Scrafty as a support fighting type with moves like Intimidate and Fake Out. They replaced that with Hitmontop, and now they don't have either anymore. But they were never leaning very heavily on Scrafty to begin with, and now... I mean, they could bring Colossal to this matchup as a win con, Rillaboom, Primarina, Latios, Dracozolt, Marowak. It is really hard to try to cover everything they can throw at me, and it has really been something to try to prepare for this matchup with the roster going through so many changes in the last couple weeks, but I've done what I can. You can see their whole roster here, but let's properly look at the matchup now. They have Rillaboom, Dracozolt, Colossal, Klefki, Alolan Marowak, Hippowdon, Aromatisse, Primarina, Latios, Braviary, and Espurr. So, I've talked a bunch about what this team can do. There is a lot, but also it has changed quite a bit in the last couple weeks. For example, they don't have a Perish Trap mode anymore. But just to go over it quickly, they can set up the Colossal and go for G-Max Volcalith with Primarina Aqua Jet. Actually, it is just occurring to me right now that they could also use Latios Surf to do that, although that would hit a lot harder than a Primarina Aqua Jet, I would think, so it's probably not super appealing. But the option does exist, and they can get the classic Sword and Shield, +6 speed, +2 special attack with a weakness policy, or physical attack if they prefer that in a given week. Colossal, setting up that G-Max Volcalith, which does passive damage over time, much like Blastoise, except as rock types that are immune instead of water types. And by the way, I don't have any rock types. They now have a physical sand mode with Dracozolt and Hippowdon. Dracozolt gets Sand Rush, it gets Bolt Beak, which does boosted damage if it moves before the target, and it is very, very powerful. They also have the Hustle option if they don't want to bring Hippowdon. They can use Alolan Marowak as a slow attacker that is very hard to break and just overwhelmingly powerful in Trick Room. They have Rillaboom and Primarina nicely complementing the Colossal, forming a Fire, Water, Grass core. They also could bring the Swamp Pledge combo with Grass Pledge and Water Pledge, although I don't think we've seen that so far this season. But those 2 Pokemon are capable of it, and if they use Primarina's special attack stat, even the combo move itself hits pretty hard. But Primarina also just a very strong special attacker that complements Rillaboom and Colossal very nicely. By the way, Hippowdon also gives a special defense boost to Colossal with the Sandstorm. I think I mentioned that when I went over that trade last time. Latios gives them yet another strong attacker they can throw at me. It gets Tailwind, so does Braviary, so they have 2 possible Tailwind setters to pair with Pokemon like Dracozolt, Colossal, and Primarina that would really like to throw off strong attacks before their opponents can move. But it's also just a strong Dragon type that's really hard for Pokemon like Regieleki and Blastoise on my team to deal with. Braviary gives them cover against stat drops because it has Defiant, So I talked about Intimidate when I was covering the trade, and I don't have Intimidate on my team here, but Braviary, of course, also gives them a way to punish certain max moves that I can throw at them. For example, if I go for max Wormwind with Zygarde to lower the attack on Dracozolt or Marowak or Rillaboom, if Braviary is on the field, it actually gets an attack boost. Klefki can support all of these modes with screens, maybe some speed control with Thunder Wave. But, I mean, Rillaboom, Primarina, Latios, those are all fairly bulky attackers. Colossal too, although it does have those double weaknesses that are make things a little bit harder for it. But get those behind screens, and they can hit extremely hard and survive a number of attacks back. So Klefki is a valuable support there. Aromatisse is a support fairy type. I don't know. It does some stuff. And then, of course, they do have the mascot Espurr if they want to go for style points. So the trades in the last couple weeks, like I said, have warped my prep into this team quite a bit, but especially the Dracozolt makes it a lot harder to deal with than I was thinking before, because I was feeling very good about bringing Gigantamax Blastoise to this matchup before the Dracozolt showed up. The Latios also is not amazing for Blastoise, but the Dracozolt is the biggest problem because that Bolt Beak just hits so hard. Nonetheless, it is finally time to try Weakness Policy Blastoise this season. Blastoise has been lacking a little bit in damage output in some of my past matchups. The G-Max Cannonade residual damage is very nice to have, but the damage coming from the initial attack has been a little bit underwhelming. And one thing that I've had some trouble with in the team builder is that Weakness Policy Blastoise is a very obvious way to use this Pokemon because it's a bulky attacker that wants to Dynamax but doesn't have a very high attacking stat. Weakness Policy is just amazing on that kind of Pokemon in Sword and Shield, but I didn't really have a very good way to activate the Weakness Policy. I calced Regieleki Volt Switch, side Volt Switch into Blastoise 1 week, and it did like 50% after Blastoise maxed, so I didn't like that very much. But I have found a fix to that now, and so Weakness Policy Blastoise is finally going to show up. Again, I really, really, really liked this idea before my opponent traded for Dracozolt. I like it quite a bit less after my opponent traded for Dracozolt. But I think Blastoise is still valuable to have, one, at Team Preview, so it can hopefully scare their Colossal. Maybe they are a little bit more cautious about bringing that Pokemon. And two, you know, if I don't see the Dracozolt, or if it's like game 2 or 3, and I don't think they're going to bring the Dracozolt based on the context of what's happened in the set so far, Blastoise might be able to kind of go crazy, right? It's still a Pokemon that can put in a lot of work. I just have to be more cautious about bringing it than I initially intended to be. But if I see all of Rillaboom, Dracozolt, Hippowdon, Latios, then maybe I think twice about the Blastoise. As for the EVs, all of this physical bulk is necessary to take a Bolt Beak from Max Attack Life Orb Dracozolt, assuming it outspeeds Blastoise, after Blastoise Dynamaxes. There is no taking that Bolt Beak before Dynamax, but I have calced that this takes the Bolt Beak after Dynamax. Again, from Max Attack Life Orb Dracozolt. If it's Choice Banded, then I'm probably still out of luck. Maybe there's a chance, I don't know. I didn't calc that. I couldn't even be bothered to calc that after seeing all the damage it did, just with the Life Orb. I do think I might be trying to do too much with this EV spread. I think that the lower special attack investment is reasonable when I can make up for that with a Weakness Policy boost, especially since Dracozolt will itself boost Blastoise. Although if they double into Blastoise, then that's not very helpful. But I might have pulled this spread in a few different directions. Nonetheless, taking a Bolt Beak after Dynamaxing could come in clutch at some point. I should say this also accounts for sand damage. Assuming Dracozolt is on the field with Hippowdon, I think I could have used slightly less investment and still taken the Bolt Beak itself, but this will survive the sand chip as well, so I just need them to not attack it with their other Pokemon. 60 speed EVs outspeeds uninvested Rillaboom. I'm not sure how much that really matters. My opponent could easily just run speed investment on Rillaboom, but I don't know. I don't usually put speed on that Pokemon when I use it in VGC. I do think most players do. It's possible we get an uninvested one. I'm not sure that's a great use of my EVs there, but it's only 60 of them. I'm not sure it matters that much anyway. As for the moves, Hydro Cannon, as always, gives me the strongest possible G-Max Cannonade. Muddy Water gives me a better water-type attack to click outside of Gigantamax, and Ice Beam gives me coverage, in this case, into Rillaboom, Dracozolt, and Latios, all of which could be very valuable if I get Blastoise into a position that isn't quite ideal. And then I have Protect, so I have the Max Guard available, or I can just stall Protect turn, maybe scout the opponent's Dynamax as well. Actually, Yeah, if Blastoise is faster than Rillaboom, which again I don't think is super likely, but I've made sure that it's possible, then even like taking a G-Max Drum Solo through a Protect and getting the weakness policy and then maxing myself could be valuable, right? There are scenarios that I think are not super likely where that could pan out. Now, I said that I found a better way to activate the weakness policy than I had before. So you might be wondering what that is if you haven't pieced it together already. The answer goes back to a pair of games called Pokemon Sun and Moon, in which for some reason Game Freak decided to take Leech Life, the early game bug type attack with a miserable 20 base power, and buff that all the way up to 80. I don't know why they did that, but to make that balanced, they took Leech Life out of the early game move pools of a Pokemon like Zubat, a bunch of early game bugs, and they replaced it with Absorb. And so Ninjask is making its season debut here, and I am running Absorb so that I can activate the weakness policy on my own Blastoise. I also have Screech because I have a bunch of physical attackers coming up after these two Pokemon, and I think Ninjask could be useful in a mode with those Pokemon as well. Again, I don't think I necessarily bring Blastoise to every game here, especially if I see both Dragons and Rillaboom at preview. Maybe I don't bring Blastoise at all, but I think Ninjask being able to contribute outside of just the Blastoise mode is pretty helpful. And yeah, I have fast physical attackers that will maybe want to hit a little bit harder in some positions. I did bring Screech Purloin in an earlier week and never ended up clicking Screech, but I'm willing to try it again here with Ninjask. I also like Skitter Smack quite a bit in this matchup. It gives me, first of all, if I have Ninjask on the field next to Rillaboom, I have a way to threaten Rillaboom with Ninjask so that it can't quite so easily counter Blastoise. Again, I liked this idea more before my opponent picked up Dracozolt, but it's still helpful into Rillaboom, but it also gives me a good attack to click into Latios. It's super effective, and the special attack drop is helpful. It could even be helpful into Primarina. It's not very effective into that, but it still gets the special attack drop. So there are a few Pokemon on my opponent's team that are pretty good Skitter Smack targets. I do kind of also want to get a flying type attack into this set. I went back and forth on whether to run Screech or a flying attack, because the coverage could be valuable. And so could the possible max Airstream, although I think it's very unlikely that I Dynamax Ninjask. But in the end, I think Ninjask is not here to be a damage dealer. It's here to either support Blastoise with Absorb or support some other teammates with Screech. And so coverage seemed like the least important thing on it, and I definitely want to have Protect. My opponent has two Tailwind setters. I can EV some of my Pokemon to be faster than theirs, but I don't have a lot of speed control beyond that, so Ninjask having speed boost is pretty valuable to potentially outspeeding some of their Pokemon, especially Pokemon like Latios, which is their fastest one, and gets Tailwind itself. So having Protect to get a guaranteed speed boost could be valuable, and speed boost just is a valuable ability here as well. I do have the Focus Sash, so Ninjask won't be wiped out immediately by an attack, but obviously it's still in danger as for against most hard-hitting threats. As for the EVs, Ninjask doesn't really need any speed investment in this matchup, so I just went max attack and loaded up on HP. But I do have 4 speed EVs for one very niche edge case, which is that with this investment, just 1 extra point, +2 Ninjask does not speed tie with max speed +6 Colossal. Is that likely to come up? I don't think so, but might as well cover for it at basically no cost, right? Next is Weavile. Weavile is really strong offensively into my opponent's team, with the notable exception of Primarina. But as much as they have a whole ton of varied threats that are very scary and hard to deal with, a bunch of them are weak to ice, right? Latios, Dracozolt, Rillaboom, all the most threatening Pokemon to Blastoise. None of those want to take an Ice Shard or Triple Axle. Once again, I have both, using Ice Shard as a hedge for opponent's speed control. And yeah, those are the main attacks that I want to click into this team. I thought about whether I could get away with not running a Dark Stab. The reason I'm not doing that is that Ice-type attacks do not do so much to the Alolan Marowak, nor does Ninjask have a good way to break it. I'm not sure we see Alolan Marowak this week. It is very weak to Blastoise, but I want to make sure that I have that Pokemon covered as much as I can, because it is a giant threat, so I decided Dark Stab on Weavile was important to have anyway, and Throat Chop is the strongest one it gets in this game, being a little bit stronger than Night Slash. And I have Protect on Weavile so that, you know, I can protect around a difficult situation, maybe get a Screech off from Ninjask in a clutch position, be able to Ice Shard, you know, do something like click Ice Shard into Latios or Dracozolt after their Dynamax wears off. It's just valuable to be able to kill turns in this format. With the Life Orb, I have no use for Pickpocket. I actually did mean to double check the EVs because these are not optimized for Life Orb damage, so I probably will make that change after I stop recording here, just to if it needs to be made, but that's not that important. Just the HP value. I might, depending on what the HP value is right now, I might move some points to special defense, probably. We'll see. Next is Zygarde. I really thought for a while that this would be the week I didn't bring Choice Band Zygarde. I have brought it every single week so far. And I thought it would be a good switch up just to have Protect on Zygarde when my opponent probably wasn't expecting it. But once again, I fell into the same thought pattern as always. Zygarde has these amazing attacks in 1,000 Arrows, and okay, Outrage is a little bit shaky because you can't pick your target with that, but Max Wormwind is very good. But 1,000 Arrows is the main one. Great spammable attack. My opponent doesn't have a whole lot to cover for it. Zygarde is kind of only held back by its attack stat, which is not that great. And then its speed stat is high, but it's not massively high either. It's slower than a few of the other Pokemon on my team. So I end up talking myself into a Jolly Nature to make sure I outspeed Latios. That's what these EVs do. Latios is the naturally fastest Pokemon on my opponent's team. Weavile also outspeeds Latios while being 1 point faster than Zygarde because Weavile has a higher base speed, so I just decided it was more efficient to invest them that way, and that makes sure they don't tie. But I had to run a Jolly Nature on Zygarde to guarantee outspeeding Latios, and at that point I thought, okay, maybe I need the extra damage from a Choice Band. I mean, this is a pattern that I've fallen into many weeks. I would like to break out of it at some point. This won't be the time. But there we go, 252 attack EVs, guaranteed outspeed Latios, if Latios is unboosted. And then the other part of the puzzle for why I have the Choice Band is, eventually, over time, I think of what moves I want on Zygarde, and there are a bunch of attacks that are situationally useful. I like Outrage for being able to click Max Wormwind into Dracozolt if Braviary is not on the field. I also can click Max Quake into Dracozolt. It is super effective, but of course if Zygarde is Dynamaxed, it doesn't have the power benefit of the Choice Band anymore. And the matchup into Dracozolt is pretty tricky. Dracozolt is a giant threat to my team, as I've said many times here. And so being able to lower its attack stat before it gets an attack off, I think could be very important. Iron Tail is here because my opponent has... What does my opponent have that I need Iron Tail for? They have a few fairy types. Hang on, let me refresh my memory, actually. What is Iron Tail for? Oh, maybe it's just defense boosts. Yeah, because I think defense boosts could be valuable into Pokemon like Rillaboom and Alolan Marowak. So I can use Max Steel Spike situationally. I don't know how likely it is that I Dynamax Zygarde, but given that I don't think I'm bringing Blastoise every game, there definitely is room for it. I had something specific in mind for Iron Tail that I'm blanking on right now, but it might have just been situational Steel Spike defense boosts. And then I think Brick Break is nice to have somewhere on the team because... again, my opponent has the Klefki, which can be a real problem setting up screens. Being able to break the screens is nice. I didn't have room for Brick Break on Weavile, so I decided I might as well put it on Zygarde. Choice Band Zygarde again. Surely I'll run a different set eventually. Up next we have Regieleki. Regieleki is pretty hard to bring in this matchup because my opponent has Lightning Rod potentially on Alolan Marowak, and Regieleki is just not that good into a bunch of their high-tier Pokemon. Without coverage, right? And the special Regieleki that I've been bringing and the screens Regieleki that I've been bringing, there's really not much coverage available to them. You can run Hyper Beam if you want. Probably would rather be Dynamaxing if you're doing that, but that's about it. However, Regieleki does have a little bit more coverage on the physical side, and so as you can already see here, this is physical Regieleki this week. It also does not need any speed investment in this matchup, at least as far as I can tell. Maybe I'm blanking on some Choice Scarf. I'm missing some Choice Scarf threat or something. But at least in neutral speed conditions, no investment needed. We can just go max attack, give it some bulk. And the cool thing here is, so yeah, Wild Charge is the big attack to throw into Pokemon like Primarina. I actually don't have a ton for Primarina this week, which is a problem because it's probably going to show up. So Regieleki might be very important to deal with that Pokemon. I can throw Wild Charge into Braviary, a bunch of their threats. And then for the specific coverage options, the cool thing about Acrobatics here, you can see I'm running it with a Grassy Seed. I probably only click Acrobatics into Rillaboom. So if I'm clicking it at all, it's probably boosted by not having an item. So I think the Grassy Seed is a fun tech there. I also can click Max Airstream if I Dynamax Regieleki, which is another strong possibility in a game where I don't bring Blastoise. It's probably either Zygarde or Regieleki in those games. Assurance is not good. It's not very strong, but it gives me something to hit Marowak and something to hit Latios. And it can turn into Max Darkness, so, it's not the worst thing. But yeah, I definitely wanted to bring Regieleki to this matchup. It's just one of my strongest Pokemon. Even in bad matchups for it, it's probably worth bringing most of the time, but I did not believe in the special sets at all this week. The physical set's still not amazing, but situationally I think it could be very valuable, and it's one of the best answers I have to Primarina, so that alone could get it into some games. Finally, I went back and forth on the last slot this week. I was originally planning to bring Purloin, and then when my opponent picked up Dracozolt, I thought about bringing Tangela because I thought redirecting a Voltbeak could be very valuable. I think it might well have been, but I wasn't sure what else I wanted to do with Tangela this week, and I actually think on further thought that Purloin is pretty valuable, so here it is. There's a lot to talk about with this set, but first of all, of course, my opponent's mascot is Espurr. They do have it on their roster. I could see it coming this week because they want to get it into the video. That's very plausible, but I've brought my own cat here, so we'll see which cat wins. I am bringing a Trick Eject button. It's been something in the back of my mind for the entire season. To be completely honest, I thought that I was going to bring it against a less experienced opponent, but given that my opponent has massive Dynamax threats like Colossal and Dracozolt that are best removed as quickly as possible if they max, might as well see if I can pull it off here. And I do, of course, have very fast Pokemon as well as priority on Weavile to take advantage of that, to actually activate the eject button before they can do too much damage. But I also have a bunch of speed investment on Purloin, and there are two reasons for that. One is there's just not a whole lot to do with its EVs, but the other is that this outspeeds max speed Primarina. I don't know why they would run max speed Primarina, but it's not like it's impossible. And this way, if they go for Aqua Jet into Colossal, and I have Purloin on the field, I can get the Trick into Colossal first, and then the Aqua Jet will force Colossal out before it gets to attack. So I think it's, once again, unlikely that happens, but it'll be pretty cool if it does. I also have Rain Dance on this Purloin because I think speed control against Dracozolt could be very important if they bring the Hippowdon. I talked about how I have the option to click Max Wormwind with Zygarde to lower Dracozolt's attack. If we're getting into that kind of matchup, I want to be clicking that Max Wormwind before they do, right? So if Hippowdon sets up the sand, and I have Zygarde and Purloin, I can click Rain Dance, and then Zygarde will be faster than Dracozolt again, and that could... I mean, the whole game could turn on that in certain scenarios. Thunder Wave is a little bit more of a throwaway move. My opponent... I've talked a few times here about how my opponent can get the better of me with their speed control with Tailwind and Max Airstream. I do have Max Airstream of my own on Regieleki, but can't use that every single game. So having an option to paralyze Pokemon like Latios, Colossal, Primarina, Rillaboom even, could be valuable. Of course, I can't click it next to in front of a Alolan Marowak, and it can't paralyze Dracozolt, but I have the Rain Dance to try to make Dracozolt slower. And finally, Foul Play. It won't work into everything. Well, it won't work well into everything, but my opponent has some strong physical attackers. It could be another valuable way to get some damage onto Dracozolt if they don't respect Purloin as a threat. I also thought about bringing Foul Play instead of Snarl. I was very close to bringing Foul Play against the Elegancy in Week 3, and it actually would have helped a lot, so yeah, let's believe in the Foul Play now. As far as game plans go, like I said, a lot of it is going to depend on what I see at Team Preview. My opponent is a very versatile team, and I've tried to cover for a bunch of what they can throw at me, but that means I can't really go in with a set plan until I see what they've brought. If I don't see Dracozolt or Rillaboom or Latios, then Ninjask, Blastoise, let's go. But I'm sure they'll bring at least a couple of those Pokemon. And I think more likely in a game 1, I try some kind of Weavile, Zygarde, Regieleki mode with either Purloin or Ninjask supporting them. I'd say Purloin is more likely if they bring the Hippowdon than if they don't, but Purloin, of course, also has a tech for Colossal, so if they have Colossal and Primarina, I might want to consider that. Otherwise, Screech Ninjask with Weavile, Zygarde, and Physical Regieleki looks like a pretty strong mode for a Game 1 situation, but even then, I can see about weaving in the Blastoise in later games, and like I said, this is all very fluid. A lot depends on what I see at Team Preview and the call that I make on the spot. This is a really long Team Builder segment, but I think this matchup deserves it, and in any case, we'll just have to cut to the battle now and find out what happens. This is going to be a tough one. Let's see how it goes. Here we are. And there they are, the terrible trio. Rillaboom, Dracozolt, Latios. The very Pokemon where I said if I see all three of them, maybe I think twice about bringing Blastoise. So maybe I'll think twice about it. Before I forget, there are no changes to Weavile's EVs. Its HP happened to be at a good Life Orb number already. So, Rillaboom, Dracozolt, and Latios. The Hippowdon is here, so we could have a Weather War, potentially. Primarina is here, makes sense. That's actually also one of the harder Pokemon to deal with in this matchup. Rillaboom and Latios are big threats to Blastoise specifically, but Dracozolt and Primarina are probably the two most threatening mons to my team overall. And then we do also have the Colossal. I'm thinking about leading Purloin in Game 1. Because I can either click Rain Dance in front of Hippowdon Dracozolt, or I can click Trick in front of Colossal Primarina. There are a lot of other leads they could throw at me, but those are two very strong ones, and Purloin has answers to an extent to both of them. Obvious question is, what do I lead with Purloin? And I'm thinking maybe Zygarde, because I can max Wormwind. It does commit my Dynamax turn 1. But I can max Wormwind, Dracozolt, or I could max Quake Primarina. Wormwind Latios, Quake Colossal. Yeah, because I do need to attack the Colossal, probably. Wormwind Rillaboom. Alright, I think if I'm leading Purloin, then Zygarde is the most solid other lead I can bring with it. And then probably just Weavile and Regieleki in the back for Game 1. Regieleki is not great into some of these Pokemon, especially if I can't Dynamax it, but it is the best thing I have into Primarina, so I'll do that for Game 1. It's a little bit shaky, but everything is into this team. It's Dracozolt Hippowdon lead, so I think I do just Dynamax Zygarde, max Wormwind the Dracozolt slot, and Rain Dance. This is what I thought of in the builder for this situation, at least. Now, what'll be awkward is if they attack Purloin and somehow don't knock it out and reveal the eject button. But we'll see. Hippowdon is not great for Regieleki in the back. It is, of course, vulnerable to Weavile. I do have to be careful about that. Because the thing about committing my Dynamax to Zygarde here, which I'm doing to match the likely Dracozolt Dynamax that sure enough does come out. We crit it, nice. We take those for sure. The Yawn goes into Purloin, okay. It is Yawn Hippowdon, that's a little bit troublesome too. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Regieleki's coverage moves are a lot worse if it doesn't Dynamax, so it's good into Primarina, but not a whole lot else here. Okay, so that was an amazing turn 1, but the Yawn is a bit of an issue. Considering what I've said, it might actually be better to max Quake Hippowdon here instead of Primarina. Because I have better answers to Primarina in the back than I do into Hippowdon. So it feels a little bit silly, but that is what I'm going to do. I could Thunder Wave Primarina. See if I get a little bit more cheese. Okay, they switched that out to Rillaboom. Well, I'm glad I didn't max Quake that slot then. We paralyzed Rillaboom. Max Quake does some damage, some decent damage to Hippowdon. They do get a Yawn into Zygarde. I'm just going to use the last turn of my Dynamax, I think. What I can do here maybe is... I'd kind of like to switch Weavile in, but... Purloin falls asleep too. I honestly forgot it was drowsy. I'd kind of like to switch Weavile in, but I don't want Weavile to come in on an attack. I don't really want Regieleki to come in on an attack either. I'm thinking about trying to make a switch before I have two sleeping Pokemon on the field. Especially because there's good reasons for them to protect things that they can protect here. I think I'll just... I mean, it's a fairly bulky Regieleki, and I have the Grassy Seed, so it'll actually get a defense boost on switch in. So I think I'm actually down. I'll max Quake again to give a boost to Aleki when it comes in. What if they yawn the Aleki slot? That's not great for me. That was my last max move, and Zygarde will fall asleep now. It's actually just slack off on Hippowdon. They would hammer to Zygarde and it KOs, okay. But now I get Aleki and Weavile together. Hippowdon is still at reduced attack, but it's healthy. It's a problem Pokemon for sure. With that in mind, I think my best play here... it's tricky because of the Yawn. I kind of want to go for the KO on Rillaboom, so I get them down to 2 Pokemon, and then I can Wild Charge Triple Axle or something like that. The only thing is the Yawn. I'll click Acrobatics into Rillaboom and Triple Axle. I was thinking about protecting Aleki, but I don't actually think it's that valuable here. Triple Axle into Hippowdon. We'll see what max HP Regieleki can do with these defensive boosts as well. They switch Primarina in on the acrobatics. Okay. Now I've shown that it's physical Aleki. I missed triple axle. They yawn Weavile. Better that than Aleki here, I guess. I would like to not let Aleki get yawned, but the Primarina puts out so much pressure, right? Because I feel like I have to attack with Weavile before it goes down. This slot is pinned. Either Pokemon will take a lot of damage from triple axle if it connects this time. But yeah, I think if I protect Aleki, I risk Primarina just knocking out Weavile, and I really can't have that when Hippowdon is at full HP, so I'm just going to Wild Charge Primarina. If it protects, then they kind of get me with that, but I can't really take the risk that they don't protect. Okay, we get the Wild Charge into Primarina, it KOs. What about this triple axle? It connects the first one, and the second one, and the third one KOs. Nice. That nicely makes up for the miss. I still have to beat Rillaboom, but I have the acrobatics Regieleki, which they already know I have. I'll click triple axle, but Weavile won't wake up here. I'll just cover for a fake out. It's Grassy Glide, okay. But that's going to lose priority now, because this happens to be the last turn of Grassy Terrain. But also, this is max HP, +1 defense Regieleki, so it's probably okay. Acrobatics here, and we take game 1. I still don't know how the rest of the set is going to turn out, but this is the first game loss for the East Coast Espurr in this season, so we definitely take those. No doubt the crit on Dracozolt turn 1 did wonders, but that's Pokemon. What do I want to do for game 2? I don't know. I feel like I don't need the Ninjask unless I'm bringing Blastoise, because my attacks are hitting things plenty hard. The Weavile is really good here, like I hoped. But I'm definitely weaker into Primarina without the Aleki. I could be, if they just run back the Hippowdon Dracozolt mode, I could be in trouble doing this. Because it's really hard for Blastoise to take a Bolt Beak, it just barely survives after Dynamaxing with all the bulk I've given it. But I think for this game... I will... do I want to bring the Blastoise? So I'm thinking Blastoise, Ninjask, Weavile, Regieleki. But yeah, if it's Hippowdon Dracozolt stuff again... That's not very good. Do I need Zygarde? I mean, Weavile can maybe beat Dracozolt if the conditions are right. I'm going to try the Blastoise Ninjask mode. If nothing else, it'll be fun. Winning game 1 is huge, but it's still such a tough matchup the rest of the way. By the way, they were saying in the Discord like 2 minutes before we started playing that they were bringing Braviary. I didn't know whether to believe it or not, but I didn't much care. But sure enough, no Braviary in sight. Okay. I can Skitter Smack Rillaboom or Primarina for the drop, but in this position with no Dracozolt on the field, I think I just want a Gigantamax, activate the weakness policy, probably max Hailstorm the Rillaboom. It would be nice to get the Cannonade damage, but I don't think I need that immediately, as long as Rillaboom doesn't knock out Blastoise right away, and this is, as I keep saying, a very physically bulky Blastoise because of those Dracozolt calcs. So I'm going to go Hailstorm into Rillaboom and Side Absorb, and we'll see what happens. Oh, wait, that doesn't cover for Fake Out. Okay, let's protect both my Pokemon turn 1. Protect on Blastoise as well, so that I'm not wasting a turn of my Gigantamax. Maybe I just go for it anyway. If they Fake Out Ninjask... No, because if they Fake Out Ninjask, they don't give me the weakness policy. Rillaboom can give me the weakness policy, but not with Fake Out. And not with anything that targets Ninjask, so okay. This is kind of slow, but let's do it. Primarina Dynamax is turn 1, okay. It's just Grassy Glide into Ninjask. The evidence is mounting that they don't have Fake Out. They give me the weakness policy with max Overgrowth Primarina off of Energy Ball, I assume. Blastoise is going to take a bunch of damage now, isn't it? But I feel like I am kind of committed to this. But my Pokemon at the back threaten these pretty well, so I actually am going to prioritize Cannonade here. I'll do it into Rillaboom with a Skitter Smack. You still get a lot of damage, right? Grassy Glide does so much. Okay. But Skitter Smack misses, but Blastoise is faster than Primarina. The Cannonade crits Rillaboom and actually just KOs. What a crazy set. I feel like my Pokemon luck has been crazy in general in the last few days. On both sides. I mean, I guess missing the Skitter Smack doesn't matter if you get the Cannonade crit, so I come out ahead in this luck interaction, but stuff's been kind of nuts lately. Okay, they bring in Dracozolt. I really hope it's not Hippowdon in the back. It certainly could be. I think I'm actually best off here just getting out of the last turn of their Dynamax with a Max Guard on Blastoise. And I don't know what I want to do with Ninjask. I could just click Screech into something. I think we know that the Wild Charge already knocks out Primarina. No, it had taken damage already last game. I could Screech Dracozolt, and then I don't need as much Triple Axle luck. Or I could just Skitter Smack Primarina, lower its special attack, but I don't think that really does much for me. I could Skitter Smack Dracozolt and chip that Pokemon. Max Guard for sure. I can just protect Ninjask. Then if they knock it out, I get somebody threatening in, like maybe Regieleki. Let's just Skitter Smack Dracozolt. That does some damage. I go Bolt Beak into Blastoise and Max Starfall into Ninjask. Okay. I get Regieleki in now. I have one turn left of Dynamax, but I might not get to take advantage of it, because the Dracozolt might just knock my Blastoise out. But I'll go for Max Hailstorm into Dracozolt if they let me, and I'll just go straight for Wild Charge into Primarina here. Max Attack, Wild Charge KOs. Dracozolt goes for Rock Slide. Actually doesn't get a KO, so I get the Max Hailstorm into Dracozolt. My opponent only has one Pokemon left. Big difference between the Rock Slide and the Bolt Beak there, presumably. I mean, we never actually saw the Bolt Beak. And that means I get a chance to attack Hippowdon with Blastoise. I'm just going to go for Hydro Cannon. It's slightly more accurate than Muddy Water and a lot more powerful. Do they protect, and do I drop to my own Sand Chip here? I have the Weavile in the back, though. I know that Triple Axle can knock out Hippowdon, but it might actually be a little safer to preserve Blastoise. But there are so many Sand turns left. I'm just going to go for the Hydro Cannon. If it's a bad choice, it's a bad choice, and Assurance is the best thing that Regieleki can do here. They protected. Okay, I mean, Weavile can still win. It takes a little bit more luck. Cannonade Chip is nice. That was the last turn of it, though. If I land all three Triple Axle hits, I'm good. Otherwise, who knows? Assurance comes out first. Triple Axle completely misses. It's Yawn into Weavile, and now they can just protect around. Oh my god. Now they can just win with the protects. No, Misty Terrain is still up. Weavile... Wait. I don't know how this goes, actually. After this turn... I mean, I just Triple Axle here, but they protect. After this turn, does the Misty Terrain protect Weavile, or does the terrain end before the Yawn effect? I actually don't know. The game could come down to that. Oh, the Misty Terrain still protects Weavile, so I get another chance at the Triple Axle. And it looks like this one connected. Oh, GG to the East Coast Espurr. I'm still going to be scared if we meet in playoffs, but this was a really solid win. Probably, well, definitely the... What am I trying to say? This feels like the best win of the season so far. I brought some new techs that I haven't so far this season. Everything worked out pretty well. The Trick Eject button never happened, but I knew I wasn't using everything. I did get some big crits in both games that made a real difference, although, you know, if the Rillaboom had survived and I had Acrobatics, Alecki, and Weavile against it, maybe it would have been okay. I'm not going to try to think that out right now. My head is kind of spinning, but absolutely GG's to the East Coast Espurr, and like I said, if we meet in playoffs, I'm going to be just as stressed then, so we'll see what happens if we get there, but anyway, come back next time for well, the rest of week 5 and then for week 6. I feel better about this season right now than I have up to this point, so I'll leave it on that note.